Evening all. I'm interested this evening in doing an Evolution of Style series video, and okay, so basically this evening I thought it would be nice to look at Tartakower, and he's quite famous for his quotations in chess. And he's also a very strong player and played some actually quite brilliant games. According to chess metrics, Tartakower has been up in the world top 10 on a few occasions, and even in the top 5 in the world. He's represented his Polish team at Olympiads very successfully. Some of his witty quotations include, there's quite a few of them on Wiki, great quotations which some of you might have heard before, like it's always better to sacrifice your opponent's men. An isolated queen's pawn, this is another one, an isolated queen's pawn spreads gloom all over the chessboard. The blunders are all there on the board waiting to be made. And I'll tell you a few more maybe after each game, let's not use them all up now. So okay, so there's a lot of witty quotations, but let's have a look at some of his games. Okay, so some of his notable games. This is one of his more notable games against Cezmaroxy, played in Germany in 1922. So we're talking about that era. He was really strong, 1920s, 30s. So he was playing black, and we saw d4, e6, as though there's an invitation for a French defense or a Dutch defense. Let's check if the board's okay for everyone. So will it be a Dutch defense or a French defense? White's next move, c4. It's going to be more likely, well, it could with this move order, black can also just play knight f6, but he can't use the fact that the knight hasn't moved to f6 and move the f pawn here, so Dutch defense. And after knight c3, knight f6, white wants to avoid the pin, so he plays a3. Okay, bishop e7. Then the quiet move e3 from white, black castles, bishop d3, and then we see the move d5. And it's interesting that this strategy of getting a big knight on e4, that was actually one of his quotations at some point, that if you get a knight on e4, the attack sometimes plays itself. And later, when the world of chess was visited by Sultan Khan, he often won games with these aggressive knights. This was a kind of stylistic tendency of attacks in those days, more closed positions and more focus on still the focus on counterplay removal. But it's interesting how such attacks were reinforced positionally with an aggressive knight, for example. And in this game we see, okay, weakened dark squares. That in modern times there are routines for exploiting black's weakened dark squares, but in this position, for example, one such routine would have ordinarily, with this bishop coming to a3 later, with the knight on b1, that's one routine which is totally out of the question here. White is not in a position to try and swap off dark square bishops and tap into black's dark square weaknesses. So we've got a kind of favourable Dutch Stonewall here, with potentially a knight spearheading the attack, or at least opening up the f file. And if that f file opens up, we've got a soft spot vulnerability, at least on f2, and probably on h2, just lurking around the corner shortly after that. So this Dutch Stonewall is a very aggressive weapon, specifically in this scenario when black hasn't got such a dark square liability. So here, after castles, black can now simply plonk this very aggressive knight on e4. So various options now, like bishop d6 and routine stuff to carry on the attack, it is becoming possible even. And we see this kind of attacking routine now. If white took on e4, then we've got this f file attack as mentioned. So we see queen c2 and now bishop d6. It's not only eyeing the soft spot, it's starting to get some dark square control, particularly the e5 square. If this can be successfully challenged, then even an e5 grip is going to be out of the question soon for white. This next move doesn't seem to help the dark square strategy, whilst black now with knight d7 is ruling out e5 from white. Okay, bishop b2 is a little bit of dark square control at last, but with these pieces over here, is white's king actually more vulnerable now? Black can start this very routine attacking routine, which you could use equally successfully in a 5-minute game or a longer game. It seems this is just a very dangerous idea that with this aggressive knight outpost you can play the move rook f6. The rook's going to be targeting this soft spot, and it's only this knight on f3 which is defending h2. And coincidentally, today is day of one of Anand's immortal games with a similar theme on h2. So these themes recur throughout the ages in chess and are often a recipe. These soft spots are often a recipe of what we call immortal games. It can be leading to a brilliancy. So we see rook fe1, which does take the eye off f2 to be potentially more vulnerable here as well. So soft spots f2 and h2, quite interesting to consider. Rook h6, and now white tries to do something about that, but in the process is damaging some light squares. Okay, there's a light square bishop which you might think might go back usefully, but black, you know, has got great control of e5 now. Queen f6, as though the queen is interested in sliding to the h file, or as we see now, there's other attacking options. The bishop coming to compensate for the light square weaknesses, but we see a highly aggressive move here. Okay, now what would you play here with the black pieces if you were wanting to increase your attacking chances? If I give you 20 seconds to digest this position, what would you try here as black? Okay, any ideas? Not f4, that's a clue. So it's not f4. Anyone else on stream or play chess? Anyone else? Come on, any attacking suggestions here? How would you proceed the attack? As an attacker, you sometimes want to open up lines. How would you try and open up lines here? Anyone? Okay, Pat MC, we'll go with that. Okay, g5, correct. g5 is justified here. This is going to be okay. If you want to make these guess the move quizzes harder, please can you go to the opening book tab if you want to play chess, so we can do the guess the move, and you don't spill the answer. So please move away from the notation tab if that's possible. Okay, sorry about that, should have mentioned that. Okay, so rook d1 was played now, and now we see it looks as though, well, f4 looks as though it's going to be unplayable because of the e4 pressure, but the idea is now just g4 to knock out this classical defender of that h2 square. So it's being misplaced. White takes the opportunity to take on e4 here. After f takes e4, we see knight d2. Okay, and things really hot up here. And what a great day to cover this game in the light of the Anand brilliancy. So what does black play in this position? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Anyone? Okay, I'm going to show you. Black in this position plays rook takes h2. Look at this rook sacrifice. He's got access to f2 here. This knight's disrupted the queen, protecting f2 here. Okay, so we see king takes h2, queen takes f2 check. and it's a little bit dangerous for g3 now. The whole structure's been undermined. King h1, and we don't see actually bishop takes g3. Maybe rook e2 is good there. Black actually plays the move knight f6, getting more pieces on board. Like knight a5 would threaten knight g3. The queen is asked to move. It takes on g3. Knight b1. White is struggling to organise a defence here. And then we see knight h5, looking very dangerous indeed. Queen d2. And now getting more reserves just in case. Bishop d7. This rook can now come in on that f file potentially. Rook f2. The attack really is quite easy to play. If you look at White's defensive resources, they're all just on the queen side. Okay, so this is getting tricky. Queen h4 check, king g1, and now we see bishop g3. Okay, the rook isn't going to have to move. White tries to give up material to try and stop the attack a little bit. Bishop c3. Bishop takes f2, queen takes f2, and now g3. The attacks are really flowing here. Queen g2. Rook f8, threatening now. Rook f2. That pawn is also like an attacking piece. So at the moment this looks like quite a delightful Dutch Stonewall attack. Bishop e1. How can the attack proceed even more now? Well, actually here Tartakower really tries to get rid of some of the defending pieces. So what does he play in this position, which would be good, you think, to carry on the attack? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Okay, there's probably a lot of good moves here. This is a great position. But he wants to knock out White's light square control a little bit. So he plays rook takes f1. Okay, and now king takes f1. We see e5 threatening bishop h3. Very sweet game, really. It would be lovely to play such a game. King g1. Bishop g4. And you can't help but remember his quote about the knight. You know, if you get a knight established on e5 or e4 is if you're playing black, the attack can flow by itself. He must have been thinking of this game when he did that classic quotation. I'm pretty sure it was him about a knight on e5. We can see the attack just playing itself quite naturally. The resources just flowing into black's king position. Okay, so now we see knight f5, and there's a huge threat now of bishop f3, and also queen takes e1, of course. The queen steps in the way there, but now queen g5 threatening all sorts of nasties. Whoops, bishop f3 or bishop h3. Bishop f3 looks even worse than bishop h3 at first glance. And in fact, it is the one chosen, bishop f3 check. And after king f1, we see knight g3 check. And White resigned here. A crushing game, and one of Tartakower's more notable games. I think I might have annotated it in some detail on the channel at some point. I do seem to remember this game. In this final position, it looks fairly hopeless. If we have to go into this discovered check scenario, I think just knight h1 would do, wouldn't it, to win the queen? Look at that, we can just play knight h1 check to win the queen. We don't have to even mate the king. We're going to be mating shortly, but that would seem to do the trick. Okay, so let's have a quick review. Can we actually imitate this in the Dutch Stonewall? Well, it's difficult nowadays because there's such well-defined systems to try and expose the Achilles heel of this. That with a3, you know, it's got a logical idea behind it, but it's not helping the dark square strategy. If we look, maybe White's already gone maybe a little bit wrong allowing black this setup. because it seems to be with an accelerated f5, which sometimes you want to play in an Nimzo-Indian. So a3 does seem to have some logic behind it, but black had such a comfortable position after the opening for the attack to really play itself. White wasn't really dominating the dark squares and preventing this really aggressive knight outpost. Has been used in so many games around this era to win games, really, putting an aggressive knight in the centre as a prelude to attacks playing themselves. And I think the beautiful thing about this kind of attacking approach is it's scalable. You know, I think the longer the time control, it wouldn't really help White. White was so devoid of resources that and counterplay that I think even if White had more time to find resources, it just starts to be a very, very tricky position here. Indeed. So it's not just the Queen G6 to H5. It's this idea which is demonstrated of playing for G5 G4, which at first you might think, why would you really want to do this? Okay, but then it all kind of justified. Getting this pressure on f2 here. It's probably worth noting on knight h4. Of course, we're gonna sack the exchange, aren't we? We're gonna have so much compensation here after sacking the exchange. What is White going to do? Try and defend with f3? It looks pretty hopeless. So this knight d2, just one more move, bishop g2, and White would feel a little bit safer, perhaps. Or maybe not. It is still pretty dangerous, but rook h2 really just tears apart White's king safety. So 2 pawns already for the rook, but these resources are all just flowing in actually after bishop d7. This f file natural base for the attack. So queen g3, and the attack just flows in really. Check. It's just very natural to look at this game and think there's actually an aesthetic impression from the attack, and White's resources just astray on here, just not doing anything really to help king safety. But this final culmination, knocking out even more defensive resources which are lurking around here. You know, it's just lovely to play through this again. You know, it's like watching this film again. It's just a demolition job, really. Actually, so one of you on 8arms. Sorry, you play the Dutch. Do you like this game then? This shows how Dutch defence Stonewall used to be so effective. So okay, so e5, and the attack's just playing itself, and quite a crunch in the end for. Well, here White resigns. So let's go on to another game. So we get this nice aesthetic impression, even if we don't have too many variations to look at there. And now this game, I've got some notes by Emanuel Lasker. It was on the chess game site, and I believe that they're out of date for any copyright, these notes. So I'll try and mention these notes by Lasker, who was a great world champion, one of the longest world champions. He was great in his great old age as well. So Tartakower was playing White, and against Kohlschletter in 1909. Okay, so going back even further in history, and we saw in the Romantic era the King's Gambit and an early bishop c5, knight f3, and black replied d6. And actually, this is good revision for me, because I sometimes get these in Chess Cube War Zones, these positions, and I wonder what to do with them, or in 5-minute games, because this bishop is annoyingly stopping one castling on the king side. So is one tempted for some sort of gambit to try and create a centre quickly, or to try and get this knight to attack the bishop? Isn't it just going to be tucked up over there on a7? So we see an example of what to do here against this, and it starts with f takes e5, d takes e5, and there's no threat of course of knight takes, because we've got numerous things. We've got check, we've got queen d4. It's all pretty dangerous, but this next move starts to reinforce some of the dark squares, and still though, you know, queen h4 on knight e5 surely will make that impossible. But White's key idea at the moment surely is to play for d4 to blunt this bishop. Okay, we see knight f6, and Lasker notes the sacrifice of the e pawn even here is quite justified. Okay, so knight takes e5, the sacrifice is taken here. Black castles, d4. Okay, the bishop's moved to d6 now. Knight f3. And apparently it wouldn't be good to play knight d2 there because of bishop e5 doubling the pawns. So giving the pawn back is the best bet. And White's actually, from the position he had, this is a lot less scary. This position is looking up from before. White can castle, can use that f-file. We've got the soft spots to target pretty soon. f7 and h7. Rook e8. So White castles. It looks a lot rosier. Okay, h6. According to Lasker, the threat was clearly bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, knight g5, and we've got all sorts of things attacked there. So h6 stops all that, depriving White the use of the g5 square. Knight bd2, knight f6. Okay, White has a nice grip on e5 in this position, as knight c4 demonstrates. c5 trying to undermine White's apparently quite solid centre now, but knight fe5, and we've got nice pressure on the f file. C takes d4 is played. Okay, and there's a note about if Black had played bishop e6, Lasker indicates that knight takes, queen takes, White has the resource, bishop takes h6 there. So just to show you that, bishop e6, knight takes here, and we got bishop takes h6 because there's a vulnerability of the f6 square here. So this could be unpleasant for Black. Although it carries on, it can carry on with cd, but I think it still ends up as slightly unpleasant for Black. So okay, that was avoided. Instead we see c takes d4. And here it gets really interesting for the soft spots again. Like in the other notable game we've just seen, there's a soft spot being exploited here in this position. So I wonder if you can spot what White plays here if I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Okay, yeah, White wants to play knight takes f7. Well done to those that mentioned that. So that soft spot is being exploited. King takes f7, and now we can play queen h5 check using that nice pin on the knight. King g8, and now destroying defences as a pattern. Just get rid of all the defenders now is this next phase of attack. So how will we start to remove defenders in this position? There's a key move which seems very, very powerful here, and a forcing move. So what would White play now, do you think? What would you play here? If I give you 20 seconds here. Okay, yes, some of you got it. Rook takes f6, because if queen takes, then we've got queen takes e8. Whoops. Okay, and this doesn't look too good either. G takes, because we've got queen g6, and this doesn't look at all healthy, this position. Say, okay, let's say king h8, then queen h7's mate. If king f8, that can't be much better, surely, because we've got things like bishop h6 and rook e1. It's a nightmare. So for example, I think we've got bishop f5, and then we can just take here, etc. for example. So it's no good to take that. So Black is a bit in the spot of bother here. He plays rook e1 check, and the rook just drops back, so he's material up now. Okay, rook takes, bishop takes, or is he material up? He did sacrifice a knight originally, so what is the material situation? White has 5 pawns, black has 5 pawns. So in fact, white is not material up, pardon me. What white does have is a huge threat now of queen d5 check to win this bishop. And there's a potential threat of bishop h6 and a potential idea of moving this knight to use this diagonal as well. We see black play bishop f8 here. Okay, so white's not material up, black's sort of counter-sacked in effect. How does white proceed from this position now? If I give you 20 seconds here. Okay, somebody mentioned knight e5. I think knight e5 is interesting, but maybe bishop e6 and black survives a little bit. It's defending f7, defends against bishop c4. I propose that as a defensive resource, but white might be still strong in this position. But what he does initially in this position is actually bishop takes h6. Okay, and this looks fairly dangerous still. So here black actually played queen f6, and there's some notes by Lasker that, and I'll just go over them here, that if black had taken here, we can play check. If bishop g7, we've got the powerful rook e1 threatening this rook e8. And if bishop d7, now we'd have knight d6 threatening all sorts of things. So this is really dangerous for black. Followed by bishop d3. So these are in Lasker's notes. This knight f7 is covering that escape route, so bishop d3 is even more dangerous. So okay, so let's go back. So that wasn't taken. Instead, we see queen f6 here, and now bishop g5. Okay, queen f5, and this gives the opportunity for that knight to guard that f7 square. But is it going to be taken here? Hold on a sec, because it's also vacated this diagonal. That's the other point. It's a double attack on the queen. Also going to be bishop c4. Whoops, this is really dangerous now. It is taken. We see check, bishop e6. And now we see the attack carrying on with rook f1. And there's no easy way, it seems. What can actually black do in this position? For example, if queen e4, I think a good move would be check and just taking here, and this leaves black in a really problematic situation. Bishop j is threatening, if nothing else, to win the queen. This knight's pinned. This looks like a disaster, this position. So here actually black decided to sacrifice the queen with queen takes f1. I'm not really sure it's enough. Bishop takes f1, knight d7, because the bishop can now return to coordinate with the queen on h7. Knight f8, and now we see c takes d4. Bishop f7, queen f3, knight e6. The bishop just drops back, and now to top things off, white starts flinging the pawns now with g4. So these pawns, there's an extra pawn here, can be used to try and get some more attacking force if needed. g5, we see queen f6. There's a threat, for example, of bishop h7 here if needed. That looks quite dangerous. In fact, after bishop f8, it's used here, bishop h7, to take that off. And now after bishop takes g5, black resigned. He's had enough. He can't really coordinate against the queen here. His material down. So that was against Caro-Kann in 1909. So let's have a look at that opening again. So the king's gambit with bishop c5. So really, what did white do? White really just targeted the e5 and d4 squares with his initial moves. So he's playing for a quick d4. Black, by playing knight f6, well, maybe, just maybe, knight c6, bishop b5 could be good here. So knight f6, but it's probably, it needs to be looked at if you're going to play this seriously. So knight takes e5, but white did seem to get a very comfortable position here using that f file, and the f7 sacrifice seemed very good with this check, and this rook takes f6. White was getting back some of the material. Well, black was getting back some material, but still left with some king safety issues, which we see now demonstrated with bishop takes h6. Okay, so that wasn't taken because there will be some severe problems if that was. So, but the attack is very strong now after knight d6, knight sack, because of this check and this rook f1, and it wasn't tested to play, for example, queen e4. There aren't too many other things black can do here. On queen g4, that can just be taken. This bishop's pinned to the king, so there aren't too many things black can do here apart from what he played, I suspect. So he took on f1, but it's still too much. The attack is too much here with the queen. Okay, so that was another interesting game. So let's have a look at another one. But before going on to the third one, there's some other Tartakower quotes which may be interesting to mention. This is one of them. The winner of the game is the player who makes the next to last mistake. Don't we all know that? Yes, from blunders in club chess, whatever. So the winner of the last game, it's not the most amazing player that wins the game. The one which made, the second from last mistake, the next to last mistake. Here's another one. It is not enough to be a good player. You must also play well, and we definitely know that. Even champions like Tal, whatever. Sometimes tiredness, drunkenness, kind for drunkenness, or health can obscure a player's true ability. They've got to play well. His quotations have a lot of seeds of truth in them. So let's go into the third game, into another game. So against Loki, against in 1937, he was playing black. So in 1937, what happened? E4, E5. This was in Poland. This game, Jurata tournament. And frowned possibly. Okay, so D6. So it looks like a very uninspired opening from Tartakower here to play this move D6 here. So what's this called again? I don't use it myself. It's called something which it slips my mind. What's this called? Someone shout out the name. Philidor. Thank you, Philidor. Bishop c4. So after the French player Philidor, who coined the expression the pawns of the soul of chess, which was supposedly misquoted because it was supposed to be the very life and soul of the game, or are the very life and soul of the game. So Philidor, his legacy is like this very passive opening. So bishop, one of his legacies, but the most important one was about the pawns of the soul of chess. I think that is a very important quotation. Bishop e6 was played by Stonewall, and this was taken. Now c3, and now knight c6, queen b3, which double attacks b7 and e6, defending both b7 and e6. Knight g5, having to go back to defend e6. If black can survive these initial forcing move threats, potentially he can look forward to this f file. Potentially white castles, but if white going to just peel open the f file with f4, bishop e7, attacking the knight, defending the knight, and putting more pressure on e5, and actually the knight is captured here. You're now gaining a tempo with knight f7 to hit the bishop. Okay, and now we see the move c6. It doesn't look amazingly inspiring, this opening choice, I suppose. So what is interesting about this game? You'll have to wait and see for a moment. Queen d7, rook a d1. He takes on d4 and plays knight e7. White plays f4. Black now castles. And white is forcing again with bishop takes e7. Queen takes e7. And now the aggressive looking f5. Doesn't look inspiring still. Of course, he hasn't got an attacking position like the other games we've just seen. So what brilliance can occur from this position? Is it going to be based along kind of Petrosian logic that white has created, with all these pawn moves, white's created some vacuum potentially? Are we going to see an exploitation of weaknesses from this apparently passive position? So let's see, knight d8, rook d e1. King gets out of the way on that diagonal, and white plays now d5. Okay, and white really doesn't get that much concrete to attack after c takes e5. White does get a pretty knight on e4, and it looks as though white should be better with that knight on e4. I think we might all agree that white's better, or would some disagree here? If I actually asked you to evaluate this position, do you think white's clearly better, a little bit better, about equal, or do you think black's better? Please can you tell me what you think if I give you 20 seconds here, starting from now? The evaluation of the position. Okay, so some of you say white's a little better on stream. Okay, yeah, I think white looks a little bit better. Okay, so what can go wrong? Queen e3. We see queen h4 here now. And is that queen just evictable with rook f3? Surely the queen could be kicked out here. Maybe with this next. Rook ac8. We see rook h3, the queen kicked out. Wants to get an exchange to try and get this e5 square for the knight. But isn't he dropping the a7 pawn? A critical moment for white. Should he be going for this a7 pawn, or is this too dangerous? You might have had some optimism when, especially if you said white was better earlier, you might think A implies B, that a better position justifies now winning a little bit of material. That might be a very convincing bit of logic that you were better and now you can justifiably win material. So would you say that's the case here, that you can just win the a7 pawn? If I gave you 20 seconds to think about that one, would you try and win a7 in this position or not? It's just there tempting you on the side there. You know you want to take it, don't you? Okay, some of you are not tempted. Okay, it's starting to some of you are saying queen f4, better lead chess. Okay, on play chess, mess the pawns up. One of you saying rook f3 to try and implement f6 later. Okay, so not minding the exchange of queens. Okay, well, Loki was a bit materialistic here. He did take on a7. And then we see a very powerful forcing move actually. We see rook c1. Okay, how does white react? He plays queen e3. Another forcing move, rook takes e1. Queen takes e1. Okay. And now another forcing move, knight g5, hitting the rook. And the knight. And also, it starts to look a little bit dangerous, this back row. Even in this position, isn't there a little bit of danger creeping up here, which white may have sensed? White played rook h4, and I wonder if knight takes g5, if instead of the routine queen takes g5, if there's anything better. Probably not. Okay, scrap that. Just queen takes g5 and f5 looks vulnerable. So white played rook h4, and we get queen takes f5 anyway. White takes now on d6, and we see queen g6 hitting the knight. Okay, rook g4, and we see both knights coming off. But here is the interesting position, that black can start exploiting the weaknesses of white's position now. So he has kind of done a Petrosian. White's been encouraged earlier in the game to play all these attacking moves, create all this vacuum, but is there a backfire on the weaknesses that have been created? Well, we see check, and in this position queen b5, threatening this horrible rook f1 check to win the queen. King g1, and the queen crawls gradually with this check now. King h1, and it crawls a little bit more. Queen c4 again. White is compelled to go with king g1, and again we see queen d4 check. And you might think, are we going to see queen d3 here? No, we don't see queen d3 here. We see another move. Can you guess what black plays in this position if I give you 20 seconds starting from now? Okay, I'll show you. Queen. I'm about to show you. I just want to say, okay. Queen e4. So there's a back row issue here, trying to deflect the queen away from defending. f1. Queen c1. And now we see queen d3 threatening rook f1 again. So is white forced to play king g1? Yes. And now we see check. King h1. And now it looks as though what has really occurred, has anything of great significance occurred with all these checks? Well, the next move is a killer move, really. Actually, it's a really crushing move which ends the game. So can you guess it if I give you 20 seconds here? Oh, come on. All I see is a string of inaccurate move suggestions. What is this with you guys? What is this? Queen e3. Are you serious? Queen e3. Oh dear. We can take here. On here we've got this resource, queen g1. Queen takes b2. Another one. Queen takes b2. You want white to live another day without winning anything more significant? No. Come on, think about accuracy here. Queen c4. Maybe just queen c4 might be a good move, actually. Okay, queen c4 might be a good move. I'm not ruling it out yet. And I haven't got an engine here to check. Queen c4. No, queen c4. What is this? Queen takes c4. That's a way of losing, yes. Queen c4. Come on, no, not queen c4. That's the least accurate move. This. Come on. What does black play here? Are you messing around here? Sorry, one of you got it. Okay, thank you. I'm going to say it. Okay, play chess, yes. Sorry, I was just looking at the stream there, and I don't know if people are taking a mickey or something, but it's queen d2. We've got what's called a double attack on queen and rook, as combined with the deflection tactic. So you want to deflect the queen away from c1 without the queen being able to play queen g1. It's not possible, is it, for rook f1? So on queen e3, that doesn't satisfy that criteria, nor does queen c4. Queen b2, you know, this is the killer move, queen d2. Oh, sorry, someone said that, but I was waiting for these other suggestions. Okay, it's no excuse to post just random moves which lose or whatever, just because I didn't say one move was winning. You know, it's not like... So queen d2 is the crushing move, is it not? Unless someone can see a magical defense, which was missed by everyone looking at this game since the game was done. I don't think there's a magical defense here. So this is it. This is just winning. Final move. This was Petrosian style because it was uninspiring. It was saying to White, come and get me. White did play very, very aggressively, and it looked totally justified, all this aggression. But in chess, you know, moving pawns does create weaknesses. It's a fact that moving all these pawns, as White did, creates a kind of vacuum, and especially you often see in games winning later with diagonals. It's a statistical fact that when you play f4, it's a statistical fact you get a lot of wins on the diagonals later, exploiting the weaknesses. So here, even though it's kind of obscured by all this, we start to see this diagonal sharpening up soon, starting to be ripe for exploitation, and it starts to be here that with these exchanges, that this diagonal is sharpening up again until it actually becomes majorly significant. This diagonal was always significant and is often significant in games where f4 is played. And now we just this back row tactic, because this rook is artificially placed. So this back row tactic, the queen was crawling in here one square at a time, like climbing up a ladder. Okay, and queen e4, okay, and then we see queen d3 again, queen d4 check. See, the damage has been done with these guys able to be double attacked. The damage has been done for the final move, queen d2. So that's an interesting, is it a ladder tactic, when you sort of climb a ladder or something? But he got into that brink. But this diagonal was always weak in this game. As soon as White plays f4, but was there a reason not to play 37 queen f4? Okay, that's the question. 37 queen f4. Well, black. Well, we just take this. Why can't you just take? That's harmless, isn't it? Okay, so let's I don't know, should we go on to another game or should we just leave them for next week? Because does anyone want one more game? Should we just go for one more game? Because it's been about an hour. Do you want one more? These are Tartakower notable games. I don't really I want to do a little bit of justice to them. Iranian Anand is on the channel as of today. There's a 47-minute video annotation of Iranian Anand from today, but it's on the YouTube Kingscrusher channel. That's not to be looked at here, but we could try one of these games, one more if you really want. No, we've had enough. Okay, we could wait till next week. Okay, yeah. Let's wait till next week. So thanks for coming. Just before, there's some other Tartakower quotations. So like, I never defeated a healthy opponent. So moral victories do not count. Chess is a fairy tale of 1,001 blunders. The great master places a knight on e5. Checkmate follows by itself, as we saw in his first two example games. That's a good one. Every chess player should have a hobby. A game of chess is divided into 3 stages. The opening, where you think you might be better. The middle game, where you hope you might be better. And the ending, where you know you'll have lost. It's great stuff from Tartakower. So he's like the modern Stephen Fry. Sorry, did anyone want? You were joking. Sorry, someone just said they were joking. I don't know. I think I might be having energy to do one more game if you really want. From Tartakower's notable games. Does anyone want one more game? Okay. I did have. There is another game in reserve or two. Interesting. That Loki game is quite interesting. I think they're all quite interesting. So in some of his wins, he obviously creates quotations, sometimes around his own experiences. Obviously, maybe they're all around his own experiences, his quotations. Just one more game. Then 1923, he was playing Rudolf Spielmann, who I think someone mentioned has got a great style on the channel today. And Rudolf Spielmann, this is in the Copenhagen tournament, 1923, Denmark. So e4, and we saw Savali Tartakower playing the Caro-Kann, d4, d5, and we see the exchange, c3, knight c6, bishop f4. So very solid. Knight f6, knight d2. Black plays g6 and fianchettos. Now an early knight e4 here. Okay, white took on e4, d takes, knight d2. So black seems to have a weakness on this diagonal. He hasn't castled yet, and he's allowing white to seemingly play a really dangerous bishop c4. How can black possibly castle now? Is he not bothered about that? Is he not bothered about queen b3? Is this not dangerous? Well, the thing is, black does have the powerful central thrust e5, which he uses. So d takes e, knight takes e5. He's dissolved his double pawns, and he's threatening to win that light square bishop. So maybe this play looks somewhat justified here. White decides to give up the dark square bishop and play queen b3, just trying to exploit this diagonal. But now we see queen b6, inviting either bishop b5 or bishop f7. Bishop b5 is chosen, and we see king e7. Now knight c4, attacking queen and bishop. The queen goes to c5. White takes on e5. Queen takes e5. So who's better out of the opening here? White castles queenside. Would you say that black's king is unsafe in this game? Would you prefer white in this position? If I give you 20 seconds to evaluate this. Okay, it's not so clear, you know, if the resources are not there, even though the black king's in the center, it's not entirely clear just from our visual inspection. Okay, we see bishop e6, and black potentially can use this c file as well. We see bishop c4, an exchange of bishops, and rook hd8, just contesting that dangerous d file. Check, which is a double attack on the king and winning this pawn. But behind the pawn, of course, is this b file. Is this going to be dangerous for the white king? King f6. The pawn is snatched. Okay, we see check, and black in turn snatches a pawn and threatens rook b8. So the king's safety now, it's more controversial, isn't it? Should white have just castled kingside? Doesn't it look a little bit more controversial now? Interesting. White plays check, king g5, and amusingly, each of these games, by the way, are amusing in their own right. It's no accident. I didn't go through millions of Tartakower games to find the most entertaining. I just looked at notable games that people have noted from his career. Now we are looking at a notable game here. There is something quite amusing about to happen. We see check, king g4, and it's actually getting to be quite difficult to exploit black's king location here. How on earth can you exploit this location on g4? White tries rook df1, which seems logical enough. Queen b6, hitting the queen. The queen wants to help to try and mate the black king, so goes to c4. So for queen e2 check looks pretty dangerous indeed. Queen e2 check looks very, very dangerous, doesn't it? But that's extinguished, and not only defending against e2 but now threatening mate. Whoops, this is starting to be dangerous again for the white king all of a sudden. So white tries, he has to take time to defend his king here, and decides in this position to play, well, the threat is now to mate white with queen b2. He plays b4, and now we see the move queen e3, which threatens to get rid of the queens with queen d3 check. So white stops that with rook h3, stopping queen d3. The queen goes back to b6, giving white a free move. Okay. And white uses this free move to try and play something really, really clever here. It seems to be really clever, to play the move rook hf3. So surely this will be the justified punishment. Well, this pawn's pinned anyway, it can't take, so white's threatening rook f4, for example. So it gets a little bit more amazing looking, because black just decides to take g2 here. It should be noted, for those interested in king safety, that the attacking queen is actually on a light square, and if you're trying to defend with your king, sometimes it's good to be on the other road, to be on the dark squares if the opponent's queen is on the light squares, as a gross generalization. So here the king comes to sit on g3, which is a dark square, and thankfully this pawn is stopping queen d3 check. Okay, but we see queen d5 now, and if white can get onto the dark squares with queen e5, this is surely going to be the extinction of the king here. So e5 needs to be covered, I think you'll agree. It's covered with rook e8, and now we see queen d7, seemingly, okay, it's attacking the rook, but not on a dark square. Dark square, light square. Does black have to move the rook? What does black play here? If I give you 20 seconds starting from now. Anyone? That's funny, you say rook moves. Many of you say rook moves. So if I give you a clue that it's the final move of the game, which forces a resignation, what would you suggest black play if you knew that context? That would be like a bolt of enthusiasm, or rather optimism, for black's position here. Try and get the notation right. I think some of you might have got the move but the notation wrong. It's the final move. Come on, get the notation right. Okay. Yeah, there's a slight problem with white's king, it turns out. Queen a6 just leaves the rook. It's going to be mating over here. Or what about you might think a4 to try and defend. Hold on a sec. A4. What can black play here? F1's defended by the rook here, but in this position, what could we play in this position? White actually resigned after queen a6, so we're just following through. I think we have queen e2 actually. And now if now I think it's very good for black. If white tries to give up a rook, I think at minimum this endgame's winning. I think we're just going to win this ending. These pawns are just formidable. So okay, white created some weaknesses and let black have this winning shot. Okay, but I think what was delightful about it was the king's audacity to go up the board there. So, and the audacity right from the opening, actually the kind of tone was set for black being kind of audacious in the opening, you know, not kind of bothered about this diagonal. He was one of the strongest players in the world at some point, Tartakower. He wasn't just a great, you know, wit with his quotations. He was actually one of the strongest and did very well in the Olympiads. Okay, so very resourceful player. Okay, so here it's just showing that the black king wasn't so easy to. It was always seemed to be balanced by the white king safety, and this b4 is really creating a chronic long-term issue on this a2 pawn, which is tapped into later in this position. Finally, queen a6. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this week. Yeah, we could have a look at a few more of Tartakower next week maybe. I think they were quite entertaining. And did I read all his quotes? I think I might have used up all of them now. Moral victories do not count. Okay, maybe that's another one. No game was ever won by resigning. Oh dear. Okay, thanks very much. See you next week.